Hi there. In today's video we're going to discuss how you can survive a winter power outage. So these power outages, they may be planned, they may be unplanned, spur of the moment, but the end result is the same. You end up with no power right when you need it usually. In the winter time, they're usually in the early evenings or through the middle of the night if there's a storm where it's pitch black, it's cold, you've not had your central heating on, and you end up in a state of kind of like, oh, what do I do? So in this video we're going to discuss what you can do to make it so if it happens to yourself, you can make it bearable for yourself and your family. So I've listed the categories in what I would consider are orders of importance. Other people will no doubt disagree with this. This is just my opinion. You're entitled to your own opinion. It's not to say that I'm right and you're wrong, or you're right and that I'm wrong. It's just, in my opinion, this is what is important to me. So as I've said, in the winter time, power cuts usually happen in the early evenings or through the middle of the night when there's no daylight outside. So with that in mind, first in my list is lighting. So for the vast majority of people, the easiest item to reach with a light is your phone. There you go. So most smartphones nowadays have a torch built into them. You know, if the power's off, torch on, it gives you instant light so you can see what you're doing. After your phone flashlight, we have regular flashlights and we have the headlamps. So myself, I prefer the headlamps. You know, they are hands-free. You pop them on and you've got both your hands free to do whatever you need to do. Obviously other people prefer the standard flashlight style lamps. After what I would call task lighting, you then move on to what I would say is area lighting. You know, so you have lanterns, lamps, things like that. So while I don't have one to hand, I do have one in the camper van. We have LED lanterns. Obviously they are very low power with them being LEDs and they broadcast the light over a wide range. They'll easily light up a room. A little bit more old-fashioned than the LED lanterns are these storm type lanterns. So these aren't the traditional kerosene or paraffin lanterns. These ones you put a tea light candle inside and then it obviously gives off the little bit of light. A little bit of heat comes out the chimney on the top, but most importantly it's enclosed, so if it was to get tipped over, the candle stays in. Yes, it'll spill some wax, but you're not going to have a flame falling over. If you don't have one of the lanterns like I've got, you can also use a bog standard tea light candle. But rather than just putting it on the tabletop like that, I would put it at the very least on something like a coaster or whatever, just to stop the heat transfer into the tabletop. I'll just use my hand as a demonstration. But ideally, I would put this inside of a drinking glass. So I would light it, or pop it in the drinking glass rather, using a long lighter. I would obviously light it. And then, again, it's contained within the glass. If you tip it over, chances are it's going to stay in the glass rather than tumble all the way out onto the floor and potentially cause a fire. So we also have this. This is an LED table lamp. So I've turned it sideways just so it fits on the camera, but you can have it pointing up, obviously at angles if you want it like a table lamp or whatever. You know, you can have multiple different ways. Essentially it works off a power bank and you just literally, it's got a touch button on and it lights up. So that would give enough light to light up the room, and using a power bank it would last for a good little while. So the last thing on my list for emergency lighting, you've seen the tea light versions of them just a few moments ago, the storm lanterns, also paraffin or kerosene lanterns. So I do have some of those. They are stored in my shed outside. Obviously they're full of paraffin, which is a flammable fuel, so I don't want to have that in the house. But equally, it's close by. If I do need it, I can get it within about 30 seconds or so. Now, just a word of warning for if you're using anything that does have an open flame, whether that is the candles or the paraffin lamps, for example. So there's the obvious fire risk, so make sure that you have a fire extinguisher close by. Also, although it might seem counterintuitive because it's winter and usually it's cold in winter, you need ventilation if you're burning an open flame. it will use the oxygen that is in the room. And if you have too many burning at once, it will deplete the oxygen quite quickly, especially if you've got a door closed or whatever. Also, because they are not efficient in burning, they will also produce carbon monoxide. It's a poisonous, odorless, tasteless gas. You don't know that it's leaking. You just feel tired, you fall asleep, and you'll never wake up. Fortunately, there are alarms that are cheap enough. You can get them almost anywhere. They're around about £10 to £15 in the UK. I don't know what the conversion rate would be. I'm going to assume from $12 to $20 American. I know some people might say, oh, well, that's a lot of money. I don't have that. But can you put a price on your life? Also, lastly, whatever your chosen lighting method is, make sure that you have plenty of consumable supplies. So if it is something like a torch or a headlamp or the LED lanterns, you're going to need a good supply of batteries. If it is the storm lanterns that take the tea light candles, then make sure that you have plenty of candles. And if you have the kerosene lanterns, like I mentioned earlier on, you're going to need spare wicks and also a good supply of fuel. Okay, so next on the list is staying warm. So some people might argue that this is the priority, but my thinking for putting the lights first was obviously if you're trying to do something to stay warm and it's pitch black, you can't see what you're doing. It's going to make whatever you're doing a lot harder, and depending on what you're doing, it could be a lot more dangerous, which is why I put lighting first. But anyway, like I say, we're moving on to staying warm now. So first and foremost is doing what most of us do every day. So wear thicker clothing and also wear layers. So for example, I've got my t-shirt on here and I've got a hoodie over the top. It traps air in between the layers and that air keeps me warm. It's warmed by body heat, nothing else, but the outer layer then keeps it trapped there so it can't escape. It's not exposed to the colder air in the environment, and that keeps you warm. So staying on the topic of clothing, there's nothing wrong with wearing your outdoor winter clothing indoors to keep you warm. You know, things like your hat, a pair of gloves, a scarf and a winter coat. They'll all help insulate your body. They'll stop your body heat escaping. They'll keep you warmer for longer. If it's a matter of life or death, does it really matter if you think you might look a little bit silly, all wrapped up while sitting on your sofa? So next on my list is fleece style blankets. Now these are artificial. This one is like an artificial fur type blanket. I'm not sure exactly what type of material it is. It is a synthetic material, but you can get the micro fleece type blankets as well. You can get those relatively cheap. Now obviously wool blankets are the best, but unfortunately they are also the most pricey. So if you can afford wool blankets, go for it. You know, absolutely, I would encourage it 100%. But myself personally, I can't afford wool blankets. You know, not enough to have them for everyone in the house. So we have the synthetic fleece type blankets instead. For the price of one wool blanket, we've got enough of the synthetic blankets for everybody, and probably a few spares as well. You know, they keep us warm. They're not going to keep you as warm as wool, but they will do a job. Also, on the topic of blankets, you can also get yourself a sleeping bag and get inside the sleeping bag. Obviously, your body heat warms the inside of the sleeping bag and that keeps you warm. Or even get the duvet if you have one on your bed and bring it downstairs. There's nothing wrong with you having a duvet day. You do it when you're not feeling very well or if you can't be bothered, you know. So why not do it when you're trying to survive and stay warm as well? Next up, we have hot water bottles. I don't have one to hand, but everybody knows what a hot water bottle is. You know, they've been around for God knows how many years. Just make sure that you take precautions with your hot water bottle. Don't overfill it. Make sure that you expel the air once you've filled it. Don't fill it with boiling water. You're meant to mix it with just warm water. Never have just a plain hot water bottle against your skin. That can scald you. Always wrap it up, either if you have a cover for it, or if you don't have a cover, wrap it up in a blanket or even a towel. That will just give you a little bit of protection from the hot water bottle and save you from burning yourself. On the list next is heated clothing and heated blankets. So I've got this body warmer, and it has on the inside pocket here a USB cable. You plug that into a power bank, and obviously it's foil lined, as you can see, so it reflects the heat back at you, keep you warm. You put that into a power bank, as I say, you turn it on, it heats the front, it heats the back, and it keeps the core of your body warm. Also, heated blankets, you can get either the under blankets or the over blankets. In this instance, I'm talking about the over blankets, the throw type blankets. So the one that we have, it does have a mains plug on it, which means it will require power, and I know we're talking about a power cut, but we'll discuss alternative power further on in this video. Hot food and hot drinks. Not only does something warm in your belly lift your morale, it can also be a literal lifesaver. Again, to heat food or heat water for a drink, you need power, so we'll cover that in a little bit more detail further on in the video. If things are really bad and it's getting extremely cold, you can go for the heated room method. So essentially, yourself and your family, you all take refuge in one room and you concentrate on keeping that single room warm and bearable rather than having your whole home at a warm temperature. It saves a lot of fuel, it saves a lot of effort if you're just keeping one room at a comfortable temperature rather than trying to keep an entire home warm. So we've discussed how to keep your body warm, and I've just mentioned about a single room, but how do you keep that room warm? So I mentioned them a little bit earlier on. We're going to start with the candle lanterns or the storm lanterns, the kerosene lanterns. Again, obviously these do have a naked flame, so you do need to be careful. But if you have enough candles or enough paraffin lamps dotted around a room, it will raise the temperature in the room over a period of time. Next up, we have portable gas heaters. There seems to be two camps of people for these heaters. People like myself who love them, and other people who think if you even go near it, it's a certain death sentence. So with something like this, I always urge you to use common sense. If you don't have common sense, don't use it. You know, you're using something that produces a lot of heat, it has an open flame, it's burning fossil fuels, so it's going to give off carbon monoxide. You need to be sensible when you're using it. Don't put anything too close. Don't put anything flammable too close above the top either, because obviously the heat rises. As I mentioned earlier on with the candles and the storm lanterns, you're going to need ventilation of some sort. Otherwise, one, it'll consume the oxygen in the room, and two, it'll give off carbon monoxide and poison you and possibly kill you. But like I say, I know that sounds very alarmist. They're safe to use if you use them properly. Moving on from the smaller heaters, you can also get the larger heaters. They are commonly known as a color gas heater. Obviously, color is the brand of the fuel that goes in it, the butane fuel. But, you know, that's what I know them as, at least. You can use other brands of fuel. You just have to get the different regulators to make sure that it fits your bottle. But they burn butane gas. So we have one in our home. I've always had them since I was a kid when I lived with my parents. Laura wasn't a fan of them when we first moved in together, but I think it's kind of grown on her as she's got cold, and I've lit the fire and it's warmed her through. Again, same precautions as with the portable heaters. You need to make sure that you have ventilation. You have to make sure that nothing is too close to it that could set on fire. You need to have a carbon monoxide alarm. You need to have common sense. All of those, spot on, good to go. Also, when you're using your portable gas appliances to heat the home, just be mindful that if you are using butane gas, like it is common in the UK here, we don't really have a lot of propane things. So butane gas, if it gets too cold, it doesn't vaporize properly. It stays in a semi-liquid form, and as it's expelled through the heater or whatever you're using, it can like flare, or it can, like I say, if it's still in liquid, it spits it out, but the liquid that comes out is on fire, so if it landed on a carpet or whatever, it could set on fire. So just be careful. If there's any indication that it's flaring, it's not burning properly, turn it off. It's not worth it. Next on our list for keeping warm, and this one I absolutely love, I can spend all day in front of this. We're talking about wood burners or open fires if you have one in your home. So we got one installed in our home around about 10 years ago or so. It cost us a lot of money at the time, but in my opinion, it's worth every penny. So our wood burner is a self-contained stove in the fireplace with a chimney vented up through the house. We can burn wood on it, we can burn smokeless coal on it. At a push, we could really burn house coal. In England, they've made it illegal now, but in other parts of the country, you can still burn regular house coal. So I do have a small supply of sea coal that is in the back of my shed. You know, it's kind of an absolute emergency freezing to death type scenario that I'll go for the sea coal. But other than that, you know, it's there in the house and we use the smokeless coal all the time. I absolutely love it. We can quite easily get the front room up to 25, even 30 degrees, which I know is too hot. But the good thing about it is the heat then spreads around the house. Again, same precautions with the gas fires. Make sure that there's nothing flammable around. Make sure that you have a little bit of ventilation because they still need to breathe. As it combusts, it sucks air in the bottom of the stove, goes up the chimney, so it needs to suck air in. So you'll end up with negative pressure in the room and the fire will extinguish itself if you don't have oxygen to replace it. Also, the good thing about our wood burner is it has a flat spot on the top. You can use it to either boil water or you can cook on it if you like. It's not as hot as putting it on a stove, but it will give off plenty of heat and it will certainly warm food through if you put some soup in a pan or whatever, or like I say, water in an old-fashioned whistle kettle. You can put that on the top and it will warm it in no time whatsoever. Last item on the list of keeping warm is your car if you have one. So I don't know of any cars that don't have a built-in heater function. They are essential for clearing your window on icy days, but also if you're freezing you have no other option. Load your family into the car, start the engine up, and after 5-10 minutes when the engine's warmed up you can turn the heating on and that'll warm the car up, it'll warm you through. So just be careful if you're in a car and it has a combustion engine like the vast majority of cars. Do not start the engine in an enclosed space such as a car garage. The toxic fumes given out of the exhaust will build up if they can't disperse in the air. If you're in a garage, like I say, they'll build up, it'll kill you. Simple as that. So if you don't just want to sit outside of your home with the engine running, you can go for a drive. It'll beat the boredom, certainly. However, just be mindful that if the power outage is more widespread, it could be affecting things like traffic lights and whatnot. So that may make the roads a little bit more dangerous and may increase the risk of a traffic collision. Myself, personally, if I had to go for this option, I would just sit outside in the car with the engine running, keeping us warm. So a final reminder on the keeping warm section, be careful. Every winter, unfortunately, some people burn their home down. If they're lucky, they get out alive and they only lose their home and everything that they own. If they aren't so lucky, well, just think of your family and use your imagination. So next on my list, it's something that we touched on briefly earlier on. We're going to go into it in more details now. That is backup cooking methods. I say cooking, but it can be cooking food, or it could just be warming water for a drink, but we're going to do it under the umbrella of backup cooking options. So first up, tea light candle. I know it doesn't seem much, but I done a video where using just 3 tea light candles, I was able to warm 1 litre of cold water, and it got hot enough to the point where once I made a hot drink, I had to leave it for a few minutes to cool down before I could drink it. Now, it wasn't a quick process, it took a while. Like I say, 3 candles, I was able to warm 1 litre of water. I'll put a link to that video in the description, so if you want to watch it after this one, you can. Next up, you have portable camping stoves, such as this one here. This one is a single ring burner. You put your pan on. You can adjust the flame using the knob on the front here, and that adjusts the intensity of the heat under the pan, whether you want something really hot or if you just want it simmering. Now you can get a range of different type of camping stoves. Indeed, we have a range of them. We've got, like I say, this one. We've got our jet boil style cooker, so that literally it just boils water. Jet boil is a brand name. Ours is not a jet boil, but it's a clone of the jet boil. You screw a small canister into the bottom, gas canister. Obviously, you put water on top, and it flames like a jet underneath, and it heats the water incredibly quickly. 2 or 3 minutes, you can have a pint of boiling water. After that, you can have the twin hob style. You can even get the twin hobs with a grill underneath if you want to grill something, depending on what you've got or what you want to get, whatever suits your family needs, go for that. We even have, believe it or not, a portable gas-powered oven. So if we wanted, in a power outage, we could cook a Sunday roast. Now be careful, as I said earlier on, with the butane. If it is too cold, the gas doesn't vaporize properly, it stays in a semi-liquid form, it can flare, and in worst cases, it can even spit liquid gas out that is on fire, and, it's a fire risk. So just keep that in mind when you're using anything like this. Use it in an area where there's nothing flammable around it. Don't put it on the carpet or anything like that. So just be careful. So next, for heating food, you can get the flameless heaters. So if you have any rations, you can get the ration heaters. You slip your ration inside, you pour a little bit of water in, has a chemical reaction, and it can warm your food up. And on a similar note to the ration heaters, you can also get the food steamers. They use the same technology. You put a little bit of water in the bottom of the pot, you put in what they are called heat stones, for the ones that we have. And again, it's a chemical reaction. It produces steam. So it's in a pot. You put the food in a tray above the heat stone. The steam comes up, rises, and warms it through. So just something to keep in mind. Although this does heat food, it doesn't cook food. It uses steam to warm it. So you need to be using stuff that's already cooked and is safe to consume cold. Or something that just needs steaming, like fish, for example. So we used ours in one of the videos on our other channel. I'll put a link to it if you want to watch it. It'll be in the description. Myself, Laura, and our grandson James, we were at the beach and we used it to make steamed fish, vegetables, and then we had cake and custard for dessert. Like I say, I'll put the link to that. This is our other channel and that'll be in the description below. Again, I mentioned it earlier on in the heating section. If you have a wood burner or a fireplace, you can cook using those. So our wood burner, as I say, we put a kettle on the top, on the side of it, and that boils water. We use that water. We don't drink that water, although if it was an emergency, absolutely I would. But we use that for hot water bottles in the wintertime. So we've got the heat from the fire warming the home up. And then when we go to bed, we have the hot water bottles made from using the same heat. And that takes water from the tap, which is, well, I don't know what temperature, but it's bloody freezing when it comes out the tap in the wintertime. You know what it's like. And like I say, that warms a kettle full, like a litre, in around 15 or 20 minutes. Over the course of an hour, we can do all of the hot water bottles for everybody. And last on my list for cooking is a Kelly kettle. So there's a few different variations of these. We've got Kelly kettles, Gilly kettles, Storm kettles. The purists will say there's differences between them. Myself personally, I don't see any difference. I think they're all the same. They all do the same job. Essentially, they are a rocket stove with a water jacket around them, and they are very efficient with fuel use. You can literally use sticks and twigs to get the fire going inside. Like I say, it burns very efficiently because it's surrounded with the water. It has a lot of surface area. It heats the water very, very quickly. So my personal one is the Gilly kettle, and it has a whistle stopper. So you put the stopper in the hole where you fill the water up, and as it boils it whistles like a old traditional kettle to let you know it is burning. Other ones have cork stoppers or wood stoppers. Just be careful not to put it in too tightly because it can build up in pressure and pop it out along with scalding water. If you're close by, you're going to scald yourself. Also, be mindful of the capacity of your Kelly kettle or Gilly kettle. Don't overfill it for the same reason. Once it boils, obviously you've got bubbles boiling up and the only way out is through that hole. So again, it can be ejecting scalding water at you. So I done a review of my ghillie kettle. I'll also put the link to that video in the description below if you want to watch it after this one. Just remember, because it is an open fire, do not use one of these indoors. They are outdoor use only. Never have an open fire inside unless it's in a fireplace or it's in a wood burner. Always be mindful of the risks when you're using any sort of open flame to heat food or water. Make sure that the appliance that you're using is rated for indoor use. Make sure that the area is well ventilated. Always make sure that you have a carbon monoxide alarm close by. And it's also advisable to always have a fire extinguisher near, especially if you have pets or children. Something can very easily get knocked over and it can go very, very bad, very, very quick. If you have a fire extinguisher close by, you have the best chance of extinguishing it before it spreads. Also, if you're heating hot water for hot drinks, let's say, and you have any left over, don't waste it. If you've got a thermos flask, pour it into there. If you don't, pour the leftover into a hot water bottle. The hot water bottle will continue to keep you warm, or the thermos flask, if you pour it inside of that, that will keep the water warm and you can use it later on, or if it's not quite warm enough to use, when you go to reheat the water, it will take less fuel to warm the water back up to the desired temperature. Okay, so the next section in surviving a winter power cut is backup power itself. So some people might say this is not essential, and for the most part, I would indeed agree. However, for myself personally, I have medication that requires refrigeration before use. This medication is quite expensive. It costs around about £1,000 per month's worth of medication, and it needs to be kept in the fridge at all times, otherwise it goes bad and it's unusable. When I get it from the hospital, I get 3 months worth at a time. We have to keep that refrigerated. Other people, for example, use CPAP machines to help them breathe when they're asleep. For the likes of us, I would say backup power is essential. So we're going to start with the small portable power banks. We touched on those briefly earlier on in the video. So most people use them for charging their smart devices, their smartphones or whatever. And again, they're perfect for that. If your phone goes flat, you can use it to beat the boredom. You can, if you have a video downloaded off Netflix or whatever, if your internet is out, you can watch that. If you have a game on your phone, you can play that. You can look through your old photos and videos, just something to pass the time. If your phone goes flat, plug it in, great. However, also for these, I showed you earlier on again, we have the LED USB powered table lamp and also the USB powered body warmer. Again, using these, it can keep the area illuminated or it can keep you warm. So moving up slightly in power and in price, unfortunately, is the slightly larger ones. This specific model isn't available anymore, but I bought this a couple of years ago from Amazon. It costs around about £80 or £90. This has a mains power socket on the top. So obviously the mains power socket, it is just low wattage output. I couldn't plug a refrigerator into it or anything like that, or a hairdryer. Equally, I could plug in a regular table lamp, or we have a portable DVD player. If the battery on that was running flat, I could plug the plug into the socket on the top here, and that could recharge the battery in the portable DVD player, and we could watch a DVD to pass the time. Again, moving up in the price and power scale, we have this EcoFlow Delta 2 model. There's now the Delta 3 models out. This isn't a sponsored video, although EcoFlow, if you're watching and you want to sponsor a video, you want to send me something out review, please do send it, gratefully received. But yes, this model, we bought it. As I mentioned earlier on, we've got the medication that needs constant refrigeration. So if the power went out, I can plug the refrigerator into the mains sockets on the back of here, and it'll keep it refrigerated for a few hours in the hope that the power will come back on and save the medication going in the bin. On a side note, we do actually have backup refrigeration options in our camper van. They are a lot lower powered, but that's not the topic of discussion here, so I won't go into that. And lastly, you have your regular gasoline or petrol powered generators. So these are getting a bit old tech now. However, like most old tech, they are reliable. They're proven. They'll work time after time after time. The only downside is that they consume a lot of fuel, and they will also announce to anybody close by that you have one. They're not the quietest of things, and they are very thirsty depending on which model that you have and what the outputs are. The other thing with gasoline powered generators is the fumes they give off are similar to a car. You cannot use these indoors, it will poison you and kill you. Simple as that. So you have to have those outdoors. If it's raining outside or snowing or whatever, there's the risk that moisture could get into the workings of them and cause damage to stop them working. Also, as I said, they are quite thirsty, so you need to keep a good supply of fuel. You also need to maintain them often to make sure that when you need them and you go to pull that cord to start it up, it's going to start. Once again, if you're using a petrol or gasoline generator, do not use it indoors. Next on the list for surviving the winter power outage is possibly the one that might surprise some people, but it is staying hydrated. So most people know that in the summer heat waves, you need to drink more water to make sure that you stay hydrated. Some may assume at the opposite end of the scale, if you're stuck in the home in the middle of a blizzard and a power cut or whatever, you're probably not going to need to drink as much. But in actual fact, you're probably going to need to drink just as much. So when your body's cooled, it does produce more urine. You will need to go to the toilet more often. And as always, what goes out, you need to replace it, otherwise you'll end up dehydrating. Obviously, it's going to be cold in a power outage. You don't want to be drinking ice cold drinks. You don't want to be drinking can of Coke from the fridge. You don't want ice in your drinks or whatever. If you do have a cold drink, all you're going to do is make it harder for your body to keep you warm. So once you put the ice cold drink into your stomach, your body has to work to raise that to body temperature, and it's going to draw the heat away from elsewhere. It's just going to make it colder. So instead of having cold drinks, try and have room temperature drinks or hot drinks, cups of tea, cups of hot chocolate, cup of soups, things like that. They'll all help keep you warm, keep you hydrated. Last on the list, and again, some people may say it is not an essential, but I would disagree. Keep the morale up. Whether you're there with just yourself, you've got a pet, you're there with your whole family or whatever, it's going to get a bit depressing, I know what my son's like. If the internet goes off for whatever reason, he can't use his Xbox because it has to have an internet connection. It's like he's just lost an arm. Even myself, to a certain extent, I do use my telephone a lot, and using an internet connection, if the internet isn't there, I can't do a lot of the things on my phone that I would have normally done. We do have other options for entertainment and keeping morale up, and they are perfect for situations like this. We've got a good range of books to read. We have playing cards, we have word search books, and as I mentioned earlier on, we have a portable DVD player. So the DVD player, although a lot of people don't have DVDs now, I've still got a good stock of DVDs. I've got around about 400 or so different films. I'm always on the lookout for DVDs, and it's perfect, as I say, in this Netflix generation. People are getting rid of their DVDs. They'll give hundreds away for free or very little charge. I'll go and I'll collect them. I'll double check to see which ones I've got, which ones I haven't got, and I'll put the ones that I don't have into my storage, and the ones that I do have, I'll send them to the charity shop for them to resell. The DVD player, it's got a built-in battery. I can recharge it if needed, either via 12 volt or via 240 volt, using the portable generators or the car cigarette lighter, and that will be enough to keep us entertained for a good couple of hours. We can watch at least 1.5 films on the battery before it goes flat. And the good thing with it is it has pass-through charging, so you can have it on charge whilst watching a film. It's got a built-in speaker. It's not the best quality, but it would be better than nothing. So I apologise, this has been a very long video, but hopefully it's been an informative video. I hope that you've got something from it, and I hope that it will help you cope just a little bit easier if you are unfortunate to suffer a winter power outage. Obviously, it doesn't always have to be a winter power outage. It could be in the middle of summer, there's a power cut, you can use some of the things from this video to get through a summer power cut as well. If you've enjoyed watching this video, please do give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more videos like this or for prepping in general, please do hit the subscribe button and also the bell notification button. That means you will be notified every time we release a new video. If you've got any comments or thoughts, please do share them in the comments section below. We do reply to all comments. If you want to watch the video where I discuss my winter car survival kits, if you're stuck in a car during a winter storm, I'll put the video just over here. Just have a click on it and have a watch. I'll say thanks for watching and bye for now.